Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. In this session we are going to start with our chapter number 2, which is a application layer. So if you saw your syllabus, then you can say that it is the layers of OSI model. Yes, there are total 5 chapters. The first chapter that we have completed, but the rest 4 chapters are the layers of the OSI model or the TCP/IP model. So the second chapter is application layer, as well as the chapter number 3 is the transport layer, chapter number 4 is the network layer, and chapter number 5 is the data link layers. So in the first chapter we'll get the overview of all these layers. Now it's time to understand each layer in the details, or we can say that we'll learn in this chapter that what actually happening in this layer. Yes, each layer consists of many things, and all the communication is happened with many different processes, sockets, etc., applications, etc. Yes, so to understand each and everything of each layer, that is why we'll learn each chapters in details. So I hope now you're clear with your syllabus that first chapter is the overview and rest of the chapters are the detailed description of all the layers of TCP/IP model. So let's start with the chapter number 2, which is a application layer. The concept we'll learn in this chapters are principles of computer application. So in this concept we'll learn what is a process, what is a socket, what is a applications of what are the applications of application layer. Yes, another things which is a client server architecture, peer-to-peer architectures. So that many things we'll learn in the principles of computer application. Next we'll learn what is a web and HTTP. The third one is email. We'll learn email processes in detail. DNS, domain name system. So that is also one very important topic, so that we will also learn in this chapter. And the last is socket programming with TCP and UDP. So we'll learn the protocol TCP and UDP with TCP and UDP in detail. So that these are the concepts that we are going to learn in this chapter. So let's start with the first topic, which is a principle of computer applications. First, let's understand what are the applications of or the network applications of the application layer, or we can say that what are the applications that lied in the application layer. So the application layer is the most important and the most visible layer in the computer network. So as we know that all the communication is happen via application layer. Applications resides in these layers, and human user interact via those applications through the network. Yes, mostly the application resides on the application layer, and with the help of that application human can interact with the other host. So a network application is a application running on one host and provides a communication to the another application using a different host. Yes, so network application is an application which is running on both the host, yes, on the server host, the client host, or the sender host, or the receiver host, and can provide the communication to the another application running on different host. So there was one application which is running on the sender host. There was also one application that is running on the receiver host. When sender sends the data, so that data is displayed using that application on the receiver host. Yes, a network application development is writing a program that run on different end systems and communicate with each other over the network. So what is the network application development? So we are writing the programs and run on the different systems and communicate with each other. So that may possible that if we are developing the application, So for that we are writing the programs, and that programs will run on the different system that is on the other network. So we'll run those programs that we are write in our PC that will run on the different PCs, or that PC that resides outside the other network. So in the web application, there are two different types of program that communicate with each other. First is a browser program which is running in the user host, yes, and the second is web server program running in the web server host. So mainly two types of program is running. First is a browser which is running on the user host, or we can say they on the client, and second is a web server that running on the server PC. So client request for the content, or for a client request for the page, that request goes to the server, and the server return the page to the web client. So on both the side the applications are installed, yes. So the applications are email, second application is web or www that we all know, third is a remote login. With the team viewer we can access the PC of other. Next is P2P file sharings. So there are many softwares are available for that. Next is a multi-user network games. Yes, we all are aware with the games Counter-Strike, also the PUBG. Yes, so on that we are playing the games with our friends that are not with us. We all are playing the game by any location. So that is also the example of computer applications. Next is streaming stored video, which is a YouTube. Voice over IP, Skype is also web applications of the application layer. Real-time video conferences, and this all the social networking apps. So all that applications are resides on the application layers of the TCP/IP model. So with that application we can send or receive the data to the other host. Yes, so application is most important part of any networking, because with that application we are interacting. Without that application we cannot send any data on the network. So that is why applications are very important in the networking. Now let's understand the other terms. The first term is what is a process. So we can say that process is an instance of a program running in a computer. Yes, any program which is on a running mode, it is called the process. Suppose I write a C program and then I run that program, that is also one process. Yes, if I write any Python code, that is also the process. So we can say that process is a program under the execution. Any executed program is called the process. So now processes are of two types. If we process on the same host or within the same host, two processes communicating using the IPC. Yes, so suppose on the same host, it means if I use the same machines for the communication of two processes. For example, I run two processes on my laptop and that two processes are communicating with each other. So that is called, or that is done via the inter-process communication, or it is also called the IPC. Next is processes in exchange host communicated by the exchanging messages. Means if hosts are the different and two processes are communicated over the two hosts, then it can be done via the messages. They pass the messages to the other host. While the host is same, then it can be done via the IPC. First is a client process. So what is the client process? A process that initiates the communication. It is called the client process, and the process that waits to be contacted, it is called the server process. So mainly there are two processes, client and server. If we are requesting the process, we are requesting the content, then that becomes the client process. Means that a process that initiate the communication. Who that initiate the communications are called the client process, and on the other sides who are waiting for the contacted is called the server process. So that is all about processes. Any instance of the program running in the computer, or we can say that any process is a program under the execution. Yes, we are writing the code and that code is executed, then it is called the process. If process is communicating over the same host, then it can be done with the IPC, or it is called the inter-process communication. And if process is on different hosts, then it communicated by the messages. Okay, so that is all about processes. Now process is of two types, client process and the server process. A client process that initiates the communication, and the server process waits to be contacted. Now the next term is, what is a socket? So a process sends a message into and receives a message from the network through a software interface called the socket. What it means? So if we are sending the messages and at the other side they are received the messages. Yes, for example, there is a host A and B. So host sends a message, and at that time host B receives the message. So the network through the software, and that all the sending and receiving is done via one software or the application. So that software interface is called the socket. Yes. A process is similar to the house and socket is similar to its door. Yes, so there is one house. So the house is called the process, but the door is called the socket. Yes. Why? Because a sending process passes a message out a door. So all the communication is done via the doors, not done via the house. Yes. Because if we want to collect, if someone sends you a parcel, so you collect the parcel from your door. Yes, so all the communication is done via the door. So all that door is called the socket. So on the application layer, multiple applications are reside. Yes, but on that application there is one door, and with that door the application is communicating. So that door is called the socket. So sending process relies on a transport infrastructure on the other sides of door to deliver the message to socket at receiving process. So on both the sides sockets are available, at the application, at the sender side and at the receiver side. Sender sends data via the door, it is called the socket, and at that time on receiver side there is also one door, or we can say that there is also one socket, and that socket is responsible for receiving the data. So suppose these are the layers of the TCP/IP model we are on the application layer. So application layer has one process, and that two processes are communicating with each other. So for that they require a socket. So each process has their own socket, or each layer. So this door or this point from where we can communicating, it is called the socket. Yes. So now we can say that application layer is controlled by the app developer, or we can say that it is controlled by the user who are interacting with that layer, and rest of the layers are controlled by the OS. Once user are sending the data, then the work of application layer is complete, and then after all the things is done by the operating system. So now this is one simple example to understand the socket. So the figure shows that two different applications communicating with one another through the sockets. In this diagram, application 1 sends the data to IP number 192.168.16.21 of application 2, and the port number is 100. While application 2 sends the data to the application 1 over the IP 192.168.1.1 or the port 80. Yes. So based on figure, we can see that each application has their socket and each socket has their IP address or the logical address. And as I said that we can communicate over the network with the logical address or the IP address. So if I want to send a data to another host, then the address I have used is the logical address, and that logical address is stored in the socket. So this is the example of socket that where application 1 has their own socket and it contains the IP. Application 2 has their own socket, it contains their own IP, and based on the IP, two processes are communicating. So this is called, so that is the work of socket. So the two processes that runs on the same machine or different machine communicating through the sockets. So the sockets are seen as the end of two-way communication between two processes. So the sockets allows the processes to communicate with each other, and the socket is created by concatenating the IP numbers or the IP address of the system and the software port numbers. So this allows the process to know the address of the system and the address where the information needs to be sent. So the IP number and the port address are separated by the colon, and that is stored in the socket. So I hope now you are clear with what is a socket. So that is about today's session. In this lecture we have learned about what is the a network application. So all the network applications are resides on the application layer, and with that we can communicate. There are two types of application, which is a browser and web server. Yes, we have seen the different types of application that resides on the application layers. Next we have seen is the process. So we already know that what is a process. So the process is the instance of the program, or we can say that process is a program under the execution. Two types. If the processes are communicating within the same host, then it is done. Then it can communicate via IPCA, and the other, if communicate by a different host, then it can be done via exchanging the messages. There are two processes, client and the server process. A process that initiate the communication are the client process, and the process that waits for the message are called the server. Yes. Next we have seen is what is socket. So socket, we can say that socket is the end point of any application, and from that point we can communicate with each other. So it contains the IP address or the logical address. It is same like a house. A process is same like the house, and the socket is same like the door, and we can communicate via the door. So that is why socket is same as the door that resides on the application layer. So that is about today's session. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.